What's going on, guys? This is Lior with Compass out of Boston, and in this video we're gonna go over the top 4 neighborhoods for young professionals looking to live in the Boston area. And stay tuned for the last one because it is one of my favorite neighborhoods around Boston. So let's go. This is Lior with Compass out of Boston, and we're going to dive into the content of the top 4 neighborhoods for young professionals. But before we do, 2 quick things. Number 1, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe below. I do tons of these videos every single week on neighborhoods, lifestyle, buying, selling, investing. So just give me a subscribe. And number 2, if you're even thinking about doing anything with real estate, whether it's buying, selling, investing, leasing, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever it is. Let's get together. Taylor and I work 24/7 for you guys. So with that, let's get into today's content. All right, guys, let's hop into our first neighborhood. So I am walking on the streets of Savin Hill. And basically I'm gonna combine Savin Hill and the South Bay area of Dorchester into one. And with this, if you walk the streets here, what you'll see is there's a number of main streets like Dorchester Ave, Mass Ave, Boston Street. And then there's a lot of and then basically have a ton of other small streets all around them. On these smaller streets, as you can kind of see behind me, you're typically looking at smaller, 1-lane streets. So a lot of times it's one way, sometimes 2 ways, depending on the street. And then usually, around this part of Dorchester, you have a ton of triple deckers, right? So you can see them as I'm walking behind. And then you'll obviously have some single and 2 families as well. But really Dorchester, especially, is really known for triple deckers. That's kind of the Boston thing here. So that's that kind of housing you'll see here a lot, especially in these parts around Savin Hill. Given that it's basically the neighborhood right just south of South Boston, over the last 5-10 years, this area has changed dramatically. There's been a ton more young professional students that have moved into this area. It's really become a much more in-demand area, especially since you're on the T, right? So anything close to the T is super in demand. For people working downtown, they can easily hop on the train while living here. And but there's still plenty to do, right? So again, you are right next to the South Boston border. But if you go to South Bay has the South Bay Mall, which has been a massive project that has a ton of retail. So you've got global stores like Nike there. You've got a theater. You've got a bunch of big box retailers like the Home Depot, etc. Good amount of restaurants there. You've got actually Dorchester's very own, the Wahlburgers, right? They've got a place there. But besides the South Bay, I mean, if you go, really all around the area, there's quite a bit to do. I mean, this Savin Hill in particular used to be known as the Polish Triangle, so it does have it does actually have a pretty good Polish influence, and still some restaurants that are actually quite good. Other things to do around here on Mass Ave, if you go on Mass Ave, there is the Dorchester Brewing Company, another great, pretty large brewer there. They have tons of stuff to do on the weekends. You can hop there for beers and other activities. Other than that, around Savin Hill, you'll also find other parks and beaches. So if you go to the east side of Dot Ave over there, you'll see there's some parks and beaches right on the harbor. So all in all, there is a good amount to do. So finally, in terms of convenience, I mean, it's like we talked about, it is really convenient place to live in. You are on the red line, right? You've got the Savin Hill stop, the JFK UMass stop. You're just a few stops from South Boston and then right into the city. So like I said, if you work downtown, a lot of people choose to live here because it's so convenient. If you drive, very easy access to 93 and the highway system. So again, really very convenient, whether you need to go downtown, need to go to the burbs, need to go to the North Shore. Pretty easy to get around. Now, obviously, in terms of parking, as you can see, there are a lot of condos and apartments here that come with parking. If it doesn't come with parking, it's typically not that bad to find street parking. You know, especially these smaller streets, again, they'll have a lot of residential only stickers, and you know, I mean, this part of Dorchester is really pretty good for finding on-street parking. Finally, in terms of prices, if you're going to be looking here, you know, condos, you're typically starting around the 500s or so, depending on obviously on the size and condition. It can go up to the 8s, 9s, and even a little higher. Again, if you're buying a massive townhouse, it'll be much more expensive, or if you're buying a huge single family, it can go well over $1 million. But that's generally the price range. You know, it's really has exploded. You know, the prices have steadily gone up as the area has become much more popular. But you know, for between the 500 and 800 is where you'll usually find most condos, depending on the exact size and condition. So not too bad compared to other parts of the Boston area. All right, so we are on to our next neighborhood of Boston. This time I'm in South Boston. So Southeast, or commonly known Southie, you're kind of actually a little southwest of the city, really, but it's still called South Boston. You're just north of Dorchester. Great location overall. Very convenient to downtown. You know, you can get on the, you know, it's right next to everything. Generally in South Boston, you know, it's kind of a similar vibe to Dorchester, but a little different. You can see behind me, you got a ton of new construction. You got row houses. You got a lot of homes really packed tightly on top of each other. So it's a little bit of a different feel overall. But in terms of the people here, I mean, over the last 5-10 years, Southie has really become a hub spot for younger people, younger professionals. I mean, just because of all it offers. We'll talk about more of the restaurants and everything, but it really has just become a huge central area for younger people, younger families, even some older families. I mean, people that want to enjoy city life. Southie's kind of become its own little central spot. So really awesome location. So let's talk about actually things to do around the area. I mean, there are a ton. There's a ton of restaurants, tons of bars. You know, you've got your older, smaller restaurants here that have been here for a long time. Tons of newer restaurants, obviously, as the areas become and emerge. Ton of new construction for restaurants. So some great ones are like the Lincoln, Capo, Committee, Loco Taqueria is a great one. So you got a ton of restaurant options, plenty of bar options. Southie's definitely known for that as well. So you can't get bored of that. The other thing that's awesome about Southie is you're right next to the seaport, so you have easy access to like the Lawn on D. You know, right in the seaport. Where in the summer you've got a ton of, you know, you can do a lot of activities. Go hang out there. You're right next to the breweries in the seaport, right? So you got Harpoon Brewery, you got the Trillium Brewery there. All the stuff with Southie, you've got 2 beaches, which is awesome. You got a couple beaches, but 2 of them are like M Street Beach. You've got Carson Beach, which fill up very quickly in the summer, so you can try to get a spot there. It's usually pretty packed. You got parks on the east side as well. So you really have a combination of everything, right? You've got restaurants, bars, beaches, parks, breweries. It really is just a huge hub. It really has a ton going on here. And finally, in terms of actually living here, I mean, like I said, it's super convenient, awesome location. You've got 2 red line T stops. You got Andrew Square and you got Broadway. Both can take you into downtown within a couple of stops. You can be there in minutes. You got easy access to the highway, easy access to the Pike. So if you need to go north, south, into the burbs, I mean, wherever it is you need to get to, it's pretty easy from Southie. In terms of actually living here and parking, it's really not that bad. A lot of units come with off-street parking. If you don't, usually you have plenty of spots where you can park that are residential only. So just, you know, there's some streets that are tighter than others. Just make sure to evaluate that. And then finally, in terms of prices, prices here are more expensive than in Dorchester. You're typically starting around the 600s for condos, and you can go well up into the millions, depending on the size, condition, location. So you just gotta, you gotta look at this. You gotta evaluate what's right for you. But all in all, I mean, you can break into it within the 600s, really enjoy everything that Southie has to offer. All right, so we're on to our next neighborhood, which is Jeffries Point in East Boston. So if you're not familiar with East Boston, it's kind of northeast of downtown Boston. You gotta cross a tunnel or a bridge, tunnel to get there when you're driving. But East Boston has been a neighborhood that's kind of like South Boston, changed dramatically over the last 5 years or so. A lot of people a couple of years ago would call East Boston the next Southie, because it really has changed a lot. I mean, there's been a ton of younger people coming in into Jeffries, especially Jeffries Point. A lot of younger people, younger families, which has really made this neighborhood change quite a bit. So in terms of stuff to do in East Boston, there's plenty to do. You've got a lot of restaurants and bars. A lot of them have been open here, smaller ones that have been open here for a long time. But again, as the area's changed, there have been plenty of new ones coming in. So a great one is Real House. That's a relatively newer one right on the waterfront. You got restaurants like Canard Tavern. Then you have more classic existing restaurants. So Santarpio's, one of the most famous pizza shops in all of Boston. I mean, even Julian Edelman has called it one of his favorite places around. You obviously have a lot of smaller Mexican places too. So, it's kind of a nice mix between the old and the new, which kind of which has been changing more and more, obviously, as more people have been moving in. Other things that are really cool you can do around here, by Jeffries, you can go to Pierce Park. Literally the park with some of the best views of downtown, of the skyline. I mean, really like unmatched. Once you go there and you see it for yourself, it really is amazing. You can go to the Down East Cider House. You can go to the ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Art, where they put on tons of different exhibitions, for the public to see. And then you can also go take advantage of like the East Boston Greenway, where you can walk, bike. So all in all, a lot of there for such a, for being downtown and for being really being in the city, there's quite a bit of options, quite a bit of green space that you can take advantage of. I'm actually behind another little nice square right behind me. So there are plenty of things to do, which is why a lot of people have been moving here. Now, in terms of actually living here, it is super convenient at Jeffries Point. You've got the Blue Line Maverick T-stop, where you can literally hop into, you can be over in Boston within one stop. So if you work downtown or if you work anywhere along that area, super easy to get to from East Boston. Also very easy to get to highway access. You can get on 93 very easily, which would take you north, south, wherever you need to go. And of course, since you're in East Boston, you're right next to Logan. So if you do fly a lot for work, for travel, for whatever it is, obviously very convenient. In terms of condos and the living here, prices here are usually starting in the 500s, and they can go up into the 8s, 9s, and even $1 million. Obviously, like I said, the last number of years it's been changing a lot, so that's why prices here have really kind of skyrocketed. And then finally, in terms of parking, since parking is always a concern, typically condos don't sell with parking. I mean, if you can get a parking spot, that's great. But there's a good amount of street parking, as you can see behind me. So you can always get a street permit to park on the streets, and it won't be too bad. So all in all, great neighborhood, very convenient to downtown. Got its own, got its plenty of to do. Really great spot if you want to be just outside of Boston. We are now in our final neighborhood in Charlestown, probably one of my favorites. Charlestown is just this super unique little neighborhood. It's kind of got a North End feel to it. You can see that there's a lot of kind of like smaller, tighter streets, surrounded by a ton of brick row houses, attached row houses. You can see right behind. I mean, very North End reminiscent. but it's kind of got a little bit of a younger feel to it. So it's got a lot of young families, even older families, but it's just like a little bit more, I almost see it as like a modern version of the North End. So if you don't know where Charlestown is, it's located kind of like just north of Boston proper. Very convenient to get to. You can just cross the North Washington Bridge and you're going to be in the North End, or you just take the T. It's on the Orange Line. We'll talk about that more. But in terms of things to do in Charlestown, there's a good amount. So you obviously have like the monument, the Bunker Hill Monument, where there's a lot of green space, which is nice to walk around. You can go to the wharves, right? So by the wharves, you've got a ton of, you got some bigger complexes there, and it's really nice. You can walk right on the water. And then there's also plenty of restaurants around the area. So, you can go to the Monument, Brewer's Fork, there's Figs, plenty of other smaller restaurants, smaller bars. That there's plenty of that. You can, like I said, plenty of places where you can go walk around by the Monument, by the wharfs. And if you want to go into downtown, like I said, you just go right over the bridge. You're in the North End, and you can enjoy all of downtown right at your disposal while living in this really awesome neighborhood. In terms of living in Charlestown, I mean, overall, it's super convenient. It's got 2 Orange Line stops, Sullivan Square and Community College, that can bring you right into downtown very quickly, or you can go up north if needed. You can, like we talked about, you can go into the North End super easily. Just hop the North Washington Bridge. You can get into Cambridge very easily as well. So if you work in tech or biotech and you need to get into Cambridge, it's very, very convenient for that. You can get onto the highways on 93 if you need to go north or south. So all in all, very centrally located. You can basically get to wherever you want. Now, in terms of prices, Charlestown is definitely a little bit more expensive. You're typically starting in the 6s, and you can go well up into the millions, millions, depending on how big of a unit you buy, etc. But typically you are starting to see somewhere around the 600s. And with parking, kind of like others we talked about, generally not too bad. Usually units don't come with parking. Sometimes they do, but if they don't, you can just get a resident parking permit, and you'll typically do pretty good. So, all in all, a great neighborhood, a great place to live, and really one of my top places for any young professional that's looking for a great neighborhood around the Boston area. So that's it for my list, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. And like I said in the intro, if you're thinking about moving to any of these areas or doing anything around the Boston area, I love when people talk to me about where they should live, what they should buy, what they should invest in. So if you're thinking about doing anything in real estate, give me a call, give me an email. I love it. I love working with buyers and sellers. So I hope to connect with you guys. But other than that, if you guys have any comments, questions, just put them below and I will answer them.